Luke here. Hope you're doing well. And in this video, I'm going to talk about utility tokens. Talk about an overview of what I look for in utility tokens and some general recommendations. Okay? So, first of all, I don't think that you should go over 50% of your holdings with any, if you combine your utility token holdings, right? So what I mean by that is I personally, now this is not financial advice, but I think that at least 50% of your portfolio should be actual cryptocurrencies that are mineable, in my opinion. Okay, so things like Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Digibyte. What's some other ones? Oh, Monero. I like Monero. CD. What's the ticker for Digibyte? DGB. Okay, so Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Digibyte, Monero, Bitcoin Cash. That's another one. We can put that so don't get some Bitcoin Cash hate for all you Bitcoin Cash fanboys. In general, I recommend that 50% or more, depending on your risk appetite, are these cryptocurrencies. Now, the reason for that is because they're inherently less risk, right? Bitcoin, Litecoin, etc. These are cryptocurrencies that are mineable, they're decentralized networks, and the chance of failure is much less. Now, there's inherent risk in holding these, right? They're speculative, they could be replaced by other chains, 51% attacks, and some of these are safer than others. Although I think that these ones are relatively safe. They all have a risk, right? But they're safer, in my opinion, and in general, than utility tokens. The reason for this is because utility tokens depend on a CEO, right? So utility tokens, they have CEOs usually. They're a business, right? They're a business. So the CEO could die, the business could fail, they could run out of money. We're in a bear market right now, so a lot of these utility token type companies are laying off staff, and that's an issue, right? So I don't recommend, if you combine all your utility tokens, I don't think they should go over 50% of your entire crypto portfolio, okay? So I also don't think that any utility token should go over 10% of your net holdings. So 10% net. So if you like, I like Populous, for example. So I own quite a bit of PPT token. I don't think that you should have over 10% of your net worth in Populous. Or another one I like, Veritasium, or Misigo, or Pillar. I don't think you should go over 10% of your net crypto holdings with any of these. Just because they're inherently more risky, you know? The team from Populous could, God forbid, get hit by a bus. You know what I mean? Or contract a disease, or et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean? A fire could hit their building, it could burn down. And if the Populous building burnt down, well, good, there goes Populous, right? The same is not true for Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin and these other cryptocurrencies are very, very robust, especially the ones like Bitcoin and Litecoin. I would even put Digibyte in there. They're very, very robust. They're nodes all around the world. They're mining all around the world. Even an EMP flare. Even if everything was erased from the internet and everything, you could restart. If there's an EMP that made most of the world go dark for a couple days, Bitcoin would still be fine. You could actually, even if people don't realize actually how robust things like the blockchains like Bitcoin is. I might make another video on this, but Bitcoin is very, very robust. You could literally, even if the whole internet went down, you could literally restart Bitcoin just from some nodes because they have the whole copy of the blockchain. They could restart the whole network, okay? They're very, very robust in my opinion. But there's some risk, right? Probably the biggest risk is that they could be overtaken by other cryptocurrencies. And then the smaller caps, not really these ones, but the smaller caps can be 51% attacked, like we saw with Ethereum Classic, for example, okay? So don't go over 50% with your utility token holdings, and don't go over 10% of your net worth in cryptos with one specific token, okay? So other things to be aware of with utility tokens is, what is the utility? Do you understand the utility, okay? Some utility tokens aren't really, they're called utility tokens, but they're not really, or I should say they have yet less utilities than other less utility than other coins, right? What is the utility? So some coins can do more within that ecosystem than other coins, right? so some coins they generate fees, right? So they're fees to access the network. So if I want to access the utility token network, I have to pay a fee. So an example is like a MisiGo. MisiGo is basically like Ethereum, right? Where in Ethereum, Ethereum's actually in a lot of ways utility token as well, right? So I have to pay ETH to the Ethereum network to run smart contracts. So same is true with a MisiGo. So a good example of fees is a MisiGo. The main way that the main utility of a MisiGo, which is another as a utility token, is that you have to have MisiGo. You have to have that token to use the MisiGo network, right? So the cost. So why you'd want to invest in MisiGo and what you would expect the token to do is that if you believed in the MisiGo project and more people use a MisiGo, so more exchanges were built on their network, there's more liquidity, the price would go up because the more the network is being used, the more a MisiGo are being stored or not stored or being used on the platform, right? So a MisiGo, for example, is proof of stake. So to run the network, you have to stake a MisiGo. So the more liquidity of the network, the more the network's being used, the more a MisiGo is staked. That puts price pressure on the token, right? So fees to run the MisiGo network is the main utility proposition of MisiGo. Okay. So another one is like PPT, right, which is a token that I own, Populous. Their main thing is you have to have PPT to buy invoices. Okay, so every time you buy an invoice or bid on every time you partake, I should say, in an invoice, you have to lock up PPT, right? And so if I win the bid on $100,000 invoice, I have to lock up $100,000 worth of PPT tokens for the duration of that invoice, which is usually about 30 days, right? So as the platform grows and there's more and more invoices, more and more PPT is being locked up, okay? PPT also, there's a couple other ones that the PPT is used for. They have an internal exchange, and then there's fees in PPT to use that internal exchange, right? And so that's a powerful utility, right, too, because if I believe in PPT, if I believe in Populous, I believe in the team, and I believe it's going to reduce friction in the marketplace, and I believe its invoice factoring business is going to grow, that will obviously put pressure on the Populous token, right? And so we could even calculate the fair price of a lot of these tokens, right? If there's X amount of invoices being brought onto the platform every month and X amount of PPT required to fulfill these invoices, we can kind of deduce where the price should be, right? Where the utility is at the moment, right? So what are some other examples? It just depends. Some of them are... No, there'll be equity ones too. So that's not really... These are not equity tokens, okay? We don't really have those yet. At some point, there will be about the utility tokens are basically just stocks. Utility tokens are different, but at some point you will be able to buy equity in a company, right? So, if you want to buy equity in Tesla, okay, there'll be a Tesla coin, but that's different than a utility token. Although you can give utility to the Tesla coin, right? So if Tesla decides to issue Tesla coin, and if you buy the car, right? Let's say that Tesla invents a coin, and if you buy a Tesla with the coin, you get like a 2 or 3% discount on the product, right? And then they issue those coins, okay? Then it basically becomes a utility token, right? And so there's an interesting blend that's going to happen of, is the coin a utility token? Is it an equity? And then I think there'll also be there'll be hybrids, right? So it's very important that you understand, what is the token doing? Is it equity in the company? Is it from fees? Is it the main driver of the platform, right? Do you have to have that token to use the platform? And in some of them, the answer is no. Some of these tokens, I read their white papers or their business propositions, and the token's not really even tied to how much the platform is being used. So you have to be careful of that, right? Because the token is basically just hype at that point, and it's not really tied to how much the platform is being used. And so you could have a situation where the platform is doing well, but unless you own equity in the company, you're not really getting much back from the token unless there's hype and it gets a pump, right? From just there's no real fundamentals driving the price. So what I'm saying is you want to make sure that there's fundamentals driving the price appreciation of the token, okay? And you want to make sure there's a solid business plan, okay? And that kind of goes along with, what are they solving? What's the problem they're solving? What is the problem? Because some tokens are just tokens looking for a problem that doesn't exist. You know what I mean? I like Populous, for example, because invoice factoring is a huge business and banks charge a high interest rate. Banks can charge like 30%, whereas Populous charges a business much, much less. And so it's a business that's ripe for disruption, right? So you want to look for coins that can really reduce friction in their designated marketplace. Invoice factoring is kind of a hidden thing that has a lot of friction. If Populous can go to a business and say, hey, we can save you X amount, getting business will be very easy, right? As long as the system works, as long as the token system works and their smart contracts are audited correctly and the whole system works, getting business should be quite easy. Because for a business, it's a no-brainer. Should I get a loan for 30% from the bank, or should I go get a loan for whatever it is, maybe 3% on the Populous platform? Well, that's a no-brainer, right? And so it's very ripe for. So many of the financial markets are very ripe for disintermediation, okay, or whatever you want to call it, okay. And for some of these tokens, I won't name names, but there's not as much of a problem, right? For a lot of these tokens, there's already really established businesses that are trusted, and it doesn't really matter too much if they're on a centralized system. Because you have to realize what matters most to the customer is, basically the user interface. Is it easy to use? Okay, is it trusted? Are they giving me my money back every time? And are the fees not ridiculous, right? It doesn't it's kind of different because we're crypto people, right? So we're looking, is the coin decentralized? Is it mineable? Like, whatever, right? But in the business world, people don't care. And in real life, people don't care, right? They just want it to work. And it has to be easy to use, right? That's not true as true for some of these tokens. Like for PPT, for example, that's geared towards businesses, right? It's not really geared as much for the average person being able to get a loan, although they can do it, right? But one example that comes to mind is like some of these decentralized betting platforms, right? There's not really much of a problem with the centralized betting platforms. They have a lot more liquidity, a lot more options. People are familiar with them and they trust them, and the UI is much better. It's like, what am I going to download like an Ethereum node and run this decentralized betting software and there's no liquidity? Like the average person isn't going to go do that. They're just going to Google bet on 49ers or their favorite sports team with Bitcoin. And they go to the first one, they make an account, and then they might read some reviews to make sure it's not a scam. But they don't care if it's decentralized and it's on a smart contract running on Ethereum or something like that. They just want it to work, right? And so you have to really think, what is the problem? And is it a token looking for a problem when there isn't one, okay? So my favorite type of tokens are financial tokens, okay? So financial tokens. Because in my opinion, that's really what the blockchain thrives at and what it reduces costs in the most. Is so like payments. So by financial, I mean, so payment tokens, loan tokens. So invoices, like PPT kind of goes with loans. Assets. So Veritasium kind of goes with assets, reducing the cost to issue assets on the blockchain, increasing liquidity of assets. So what Veritasium is doing, they're really making like things like real estate and gold and silver more liquid. Anything that has to do with the financial markets or the asset markets, like real estate, gold, silver, oil, bonds, equities, peer-to-peer, anything to do with loans, like mortgages, all those type of financial things. Those are like the financial markets. And that's what I think the utility tokens will really thrive in, okay? In my opinion, this is not financial advice, but there's not as much of a use case for tokens that are not financial based. Like we talked about, a decentralized betting platform, or you could have like a decentralized, I don't know, there's lots of different tokens that are not financial based, but, and I think maybe some of those tokens will do good, don't get me wrong, but there's more competition, there's more centralized systems that already charge much less. Whereas in the financial markets, because there's so much regulation and there's so much manipulation and regulation, and there's so much friction because of laws and monopolies from the banks and fiat currencies and stuff like that, it's so ripe for disintermediation because there's so many fees. Like PayPal, for example. PayPal charges way more money than they should, right? If you create a payment solution that beats PayPal and it's as easy to use as PayPal, you can win. You know what I mean? So that's one question you have to ask yourself is, what is the problem? But last but not least, I want to talk about how utility tokens are actually a hedge. And I've made a video about this before, but because this video is on utility tokens, I want to talk about this, mention this one more time. In many ways, it's a hedge, okay? So you would probably agree with me that these coins are inherently less risky. Okay, Bitcoin's probably not going anywhere. Litecoin probably not going anywhere, or many people would disagree. Or most of these coins that I listed aren't going anywhere. But in some ways, utility tokens are a hedge, because if you believe in the token and you believe in the business proposition, you have to realize that these are built on top of it. So we talk about Populus, for example, PPT. Populus is built on top of Ethereum, but it doesn't matter which blockchain Populus is built on top of. Populus can succeed even if one of these fails. So let's say PPT is built on F. Let's say Ethereum has a fatal flaw, or liquidity dries up, or something comes along that replaces Ethereum, like EOS, even though I don't like EOS at all. I don't think EOS will replace Ethereum. Let's say it did. Well, PPT can put its smart contracts onto a different platform, okay? And it's not as hard as it sounds. Or maybe it is, but it'll probably get easier over time. But the point is they can do it, right? So you could port PPT to Digibyte, okay? The smart contracts will work a little bit different. That's something like a programmer can explain to you. But I understand, and I'm explaining to you that it is doable. A lot of these different coins can do smart, at least simple smart contracts, right? Maybe not the way Ethereum does, but you could put PPT on Ethereum Classic, right? You could put PPT on Digibyte with some of the Digibyte upgrades, from my understanding. You probably couldn't do PPT as easily on Bitcoin, just because Bitcoin, the fees are higher and it's slower and it's built more to store value. But you could probably build PPT on Litecoin too. But whatever smart contract platform that comes along that might replace Ethereum, PPT could go on top of it and still succeed. And the end user or the business looking for an invoice platform to save a lot of money wouldn't notice really any of a difference, right? Because businesses that using Populus won't even know that it's running on top of Ethereum. They just know it's saving them money, right? The business and most people, they don't care if it's decentralized or if it's running through a smart contract. Populus, it depends. It's the smart contracts are used to save the business money. The business doesn't even know that it's on a smart contract, right? And so same thing with like Veritasium, for example, which is doing peer-to-peer assets. Veritasium was actually first initially built by Reggie Middleton on Bitcoin. And then Ethereum came out and they're like, whoa, maybe Ethereum, this is way better for smart contracts. We should use Ethereum, right? And so they actually redid the whole thing and they built it on Ethereum instead of Bitcoin. But the point is, if F, like again, same thing with Veritasium. If F failed or was replaced by something like EOS, Veritasium could just port its system and its smart contracts onto a different platform. So in some ways, it's a hedge, right? Because it doesn't matter if what it's built on fails. It can move, okay? And so the risk is just in different things, right? These, I would say, are inherently less risky overall, but there's a risk in them. Ethereum could fail for whatever reason. But the utility tokens are a hedge, because if the leadership of the token is solid and it's getting more and more business, and the platform and the business that it's running the platform is making money and they're growing and expanding, as long as the business makes sense and they're profitable, it doesn't matter what blockchain they're built on, right? And if you own a chunk of the utility token and it has solid fundamentals and it's tied to how much the platform is being used, you'll see appreciation in that token. And in some ways, again, it's a hedge, okay? Because these tokens really depend more on the people, okay? So are you more of a people person? Do you understand people, or do you understand the tech more? If you understand the tech more, you might want to invest more in these. If you understand people more, you might consider hedging yourself in some of these utility tokens, right? Because you have to understand who's running it. You have to realize that there's not many business people in cryptocurrencies. This is mostly techie type stuff. Okay, these are people that never run a business. They don't understand how taxes and regulations work as much. They're more like computer programmer types. Okay, many of these things like PPT and Veritasium and some of these other financial based, these are business people, right? They understand what are the business needs of their customer. They understand what role they're trying to fulfill. They understand how to reduce cost for their clients. They have a client list. They understand how to do marketing, etc., etc. And so it's much more dependent on the people, right? Who's in charge of that project? One reason why I buy Veritasium, I'll just mention this at the end, why I buy Veritasium is because I like the people running Veritasium. I follow them on social media. I love Reggie Middleton. I love his vision. I love his. My bet isn't really on Veritasium. My bet's on Reggie Middleton. You know what I mean? I'm betting. Gary Vaynerchuk has a video on this where he talks about, like if you own stock in Tesla, you're not really betting on Tesla. You're betting on Elon Musk. You know what I mean? You're not betting on the horse. You're betting on the jockey, right? Same is true with Very. I don't really own much Very because I'm betting on Very. I'm really betting on Reggie Middleton and his vision and his work ethic and his charisma and his social media following. It's the same as kind of Tesla stock. You're betting on Elon Musk. Is Elon Musk a genius? I would argue that Elon Musk probably is a genius, and he's a hard worker, and he understands how to build a car company, obviously. And so you're betting on Elon coming up with new ideas and having the foresight to create a team that can also come up with new ideas, and they can really push forward their electric car agenda. Same with like SpaceX, who Elon Musk also kind of runs. So you have to really understand the people. Who's running it? Does it make business sense? Who's part of the team? Etc., etc. Anyways, hope I didn't bore you too much. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. And stay classy.